high school coach of the high school that I graduated from. Not when I was there, but when I was a little kid, he was the coach of Hope County High School.
Okay, how about that?
Yes.
Love
Small world, right?
it. Yeah, no kidding.
All right, well, thank you all so incredibly much for taking time out of your very busy schedules to meet with us. I'm so happy that the weather permits us all to be here and that we are blessed because our technology has not gone out. With the world of Zoom, I have no clue what I would do if my apartment lost power. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to introduce ourselves and then we're just going to hop into questions. We really want to keep this a very casual discussion. So if you have anything to add, just feel free. It's very casual. So my name is Isabel Riley, as you can see in the little corner right there. I'm a student at Appalachian State. I'm a junior marketing major, and I have the honor of being a career guide where I can help students work on their resumes and their career skills.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ariella. I'm a sophomore here at App. I'm a sociology and economics double major, trying to pick up a minor in a foreign language, but we'll see how that goes. 2 majors is proving to be difficult enough. I'm a part of the LEAD team, which is a group of student leadership leaders on campus. It's a great organization. I'm also the treasurer for Hillel, which is our Jewish student organization, as well as a member of AppHarvest, which is a business research group we have on campus. And was anybody else like to, I guess our first question really is just basically introducing ourselves. So I would love if you guys could just give us a brief overview of your position, your organization, and I guess what really drew you to that role to begin with.
Yeah, I can jump in. So my name is Zach Miller. I am the senior corporate recruiter here at AppHarvest. So we are a ag tech company centralized in central Kentucky. So the picture over my shoulder is our flagship farm that was just completed last year. So we do indoor climate controlled agriculture. So it's a 60-acre facility in Moorhead, Kentucky, which if you're not all that familiar with Kentucky geography is about just shy of an hour east of where I sit here at our corporate office in Lexington. So I am focused on building a corporate team. So we are a kind of mid-stage startup. We've got about 300 people organizationally now, and I'm focused on corporate talent acquisition. And the latter part of the question, what drew me here was the mission. We're a very mission-driven organization. So we're focused on building a sustainable food supply chain so we can improve access to fresh fruits and vegetables for all. So specifically targeting here in Central Appalachia. So we're super excited to be based here. There's lots of reasons which you can get into here in a little bit as to why we're here, but it's a lot of fun. I think it's exciting to be a part of an industry that's evolving and changing as we think about food for the future. So that was really what drew me to the organization, and also pairing with what I love to do, which is recruiting and talent acquisition.
I'll jump in. I'd just like to say, first of all, thank you so much for hosting this. I'm excited to be part of the panel today and learning more about the other companies on our call today. I'm Ashley Cooke. I am the HR manager at our corporate office here at Unifi in Greensboro, North Carolina. I think our company is really just based in sustainability through our Reprieve line, which I'll touch on a little later, I think, in some of the other questions, but we've really been able to take 20 billion technically and counting, getting close to that 25 billion mark today, plastic bottles and turn them into fiber. And I think it's really neat to be able to see that our fiber is truly a core component of many of the brands that we all know and appreciate and use truly in our everyday lives. And my role here at Unifi is to oversee the talent acquisition process. And I do a lot of partnering with our SVP of HR on a lot of exciting strategic initiatives that are rolling out and will continue in the future. I know from a standpoint of what really attracted me to Unifi, I am fairly new to the team. So I joined last October, and it was really the connection I had with the senior leadership and our SVP of HR. I was really excited about our mission and vision and where the company was going and the opportunities that were on the horizon. So that's what brought me here, and that's where I am today.
Wow. Sounds great. I think we all are in agreement that mission is what brought us to our respective organizations. I am super excited to be here. I'm Faye Gore. and I'm a regional director on the National Geographic education team. And my main role is to build partnerships with educators and like-minded organizations, and even youth-focused organizations, where we try to use the power of science, technology, storytelling, education, to both protect and illuminate the wonders of our world. So as you can imagine from National Geographic, if you've ever watched the channel or seen the magazine, right? Exploration is at the heart of what we do so that we can protect and preserve the natural world and the human world. But also our mission is steeped and focused on science. Like science is at the heart of what we do. And what brought me to this organization, as Zach shared, is the mission. Like, it's such a powerful mission. I've been in education for about 23 years, mostly in a formal setting. And this really gave me an opportunity to see what was happening and how we might use education more effectively to help young people become the change makers that they can be. And so I'm really excited also to be a part of this. I think this is the third time I got the opportunity to be a part of one of these Careers for Impact. And I think what you guys are doing is super powerful, and especially having young people moderate this session, I think it's pretty awesome.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
Faye, you said one thing that really stood out to me, and that was power of science. And so I see that all of your organizations really enable that. So would you guys mind going into more detail about the advancements of science that your organization is pursuing now and plans on pursuing in the future?
Sure, maybe I'm happy to start. So a big part of what we do is we partner with scientists of all kinds around the world. And we try to fund their ideas of exploration, right? Whether it's above land, whether it's sea, protecting the natural world. So we use science as the base because we rely on the expertise of, people in the field. But in terms of my role in education, though, is that we still lean into science, but we use a geography as the base of that. And a lot of times people think geography is just about locating things on a map, but no, geography takes like science, right? Say if we look at what's happening around our world in terms of COVID-19, and use a map as a way to visualize. So it's data points, right? What's happening? Where is it happening? Where did it start? How is it spreading? So it's telling the story of what's happening in our world and how we might solve it. And then again, going back to education, we try to create tools and resources that our explorers are using out in the field, whether it's camera traps to see what's happening in an endangered area, to bring that into the classroom and show students how they might use that, not when they graduate or when they get a college degree, but how they can use some of these same tools right now to solve some of the problems that are happening in their community. And the power of science, not just in a science class, but using the knowledge that you gain from scientific exploration and observation and data collection to really solve problems. It could be in sociology, right? We might be looking at human dynamics and using and making observations and collecting data around that, and then seeing how that shows up in the real world. So science is always going to be at the heart of what we do. But we also want to put it in the hands of young people, even beginning in pre-K through college level.
I'll jump in here. So I think, as I mentioned, our reprieve line, this is one of the things that people say, well, how did you get here? How did this originate? Where did this come from? So really, the idea was derived and was truly born out of the need for us to just recycle our own textile waste. And when Reprieve was developed, obviously, our goal, was X, and now we're looking at in 2022 close to 30 billion recycled bottles. So I think I always think that's interesting to understand, like, where did it come from, right? And us being responsible and thinking from a sustainability standpoint, what can we do to make a difference? And, our slogan is for the good of tomorrow, and it truly is making a difference. And I think, as we look ahead, Our vision as far as our next step with Reprieve, we want to take it even further, which is exciting, and some of that mission and vision I spoke about earlier. But that's even going to look at how we can take large scale fabric and like post-consumer garments and the fabric waste and collect that and essentially shred that into its own unique material to create take-back chip, which is then turned into a polyester, which is going to be branded Reprieve. And I think how that connects to students or people that are interested in partnering with us is that all of this is driven by science, and as we call it, the power of science on the call. But many of our employees are engineers and chemists. We greatly appreciate the partnership that we have with local universities, also industry associations, and even R&D labs. So it's our goal to really build better products with sustainability at the core, which also drives our overall mission. So it's an exciting thing to be a part of, and the growth there is very encouraging.
Yeah, I can jump in here on my end. So what we do at AppHarvest would not be possible without science, right? So our growers are horticulturists and botanists, and then the people that built the facility are engineers and architects. And so it's all starting with science. So we say here, we farm smarter. So the reason we're doing climate controlled agriculture is we can get about 30 times the yield per acre. So the facility behind me is a 60-acre environment, and at full capacity will produce on average annually 45 million pounds of tomatoes. And one of the reasons we are doing what we're doing is because on average, the US consumes about 5 billion pounds of tomatoes, and about 4 billion of which is imported from Mexico. So there's a huge disparity in terms of production that's in the United States. And we can do it with about 90% less water because we have an entire 10-acre retention pond that harvests all recycled rainwater, and the entire facility isn't tapped into the watershed, and we have no agricultural runoff. We can run 100% on recycled rainwater. So, and that all harkens back to science. So I was actually in the greenhouse on Wednesday picking tomatoes. It's been a bit all hands on deck here, so that was a lot of fun. But it's funny, I'm walking down the hallway or the aisleway, and there's an autonomous cart that's taking tomatoes from the greenhouse into the pack house, and no one's driving it, and that's all science. So I think what we're doing here is just trying to rethink and reshape how we think about agriculture, so we can build a sustainable food network for the future. And again, that all kind of harkens back to the science and technology piece. We really lean into the tech piece of ag tech, so it's a lot of fun.
I would love to pick back up of what Zach said about technology. I think that is also key. For one, is we want to partner with organizations like Zach. Once they have innovative ideas, we help to scale and spread those ideas like where they might be most applicable. But I think also one of the things that we're really trying to lean in is to how do we use technology to protect and illuminate the wonders of our world. So it might be we partnered to develop this app called iNaturalist. And a lot of citizen scientists use this app as a way to help students collect data in their own community about the natural world, whether it's plant life or animal life that exists. Or it could be using another tool that we helped develop called Marine Debris Tracker to help both students, educators, the everyday citizen understand what's happening in their waterways, right? Where's the trash go, right? What's there and how does it harm us? And then how can we solve the problem of that? So I think science and technology go hand in hand to build a better world.
Well, in all three of your cases, I think an underlying theme I noticed is that you're really using science as a tool for empowerment, whether it's empowering your local community, students you don't maybe have direct contact with, but indirectly through different National Geographic magazines. So do you think working in your company culture, does that sense of empowerment roll over into the people you work with? And if it does, how do you think that contributes to empowering yourself as well as an individual in terms of contributing to society?
I don't mind jumping in here because I think at the heart of like all of our employees, one of the things, and it goes back to the mission that we've all said, most of us join the organization because of its mission. So even in our personal lives, we have a dedication to protecting our environment, right? So whether it's, animal rescue, or we have like experts on our team that are experts in citizen science. They might have participated in nonprofits, they're on other boards too. So I think at the heart, if people want to join National Geographic, they have to show that they are really committed to that mission. And we partner with, organizations who also are mission aligned. And I think it really shows up in our empowerment, because if you're living the mission, that people really believe that this is something that can be achievable. I know even, in the education space, empowering educators to be a part and help create with us. And I'm harping on education because I think that is the gateway for all of this, right? If we want to do better sustainable development in agriculture, we can't wait till kids are out of school. We got to start in the very beginning. So I think all of us in our organization are empowered to support our local community. And especially, I live in Raleigh, or right outside of Raleigh, but our headquarters is in DC. And a lot of the work that we do is around the city of DC, in ensuring that it becomes more sustainable, livable, a community, both from a human aspect and in terms of the environment.
I think that's great what Faye was just alluding to regarding the empowerment of the employee body. We here are mission driven, right? And so we empower our employees to be mission driven as well, whether that's with our, tomatoes, or if that's, in something else they're passionate about. And so we provide all of our employees, whether they're working in the greenhouse or the CFO, 2 company paid mission days every year to go out and volunteer in the community. And we try and do that collectively. So for the recruiting team, we're passionate about bringing bright young individuals into the organization, and we work with our community team from the container farm program that we have, where we put basically retired shipping containers on site at local high schools, and we do some vertical farming and some hydroponic farming and things like that. And so we want to go out and work with the students and teach people, whether they come to work for AppHarvest or if they go on to major in agribusiness. We're excited just to create those connections. So we are very focused on the mission, both here and then also externally as well.
And I would add that as an HR professional at heart, I love connecting with students and potential candidates that are interested in Unifi. So for me, I love being able to connect the dots. It's really fun to say and be part of a company that's not just, you don't just have a sustainability report that you publish each year. All companies are moving in that direction. And I think that's just the norm, to be able to check that box. But to say really at the heart of your business, this is what makes your company successful and drives your business forward. That's a really big thing to be a part of. And I think it makes our team very proud. And also, there's a connection between that. From an HR standpoint, of course, I think that culture, it does spill over into the culture. People are very passionate about this area. I love to see students light up and they really don't know much about us. And I can say, hey, that popular apparel brand, or, that, automotive, industry, that is, we're part of that. So we're part of making that happen. So it's nice to connect the dots on that, and I really see that excitement in candidates being able to correlate the two and connect those pieces. So that's an enjoyment for me, for my role as an HR manager, to get people passionate about a company that I'm very passionate about and is doing great things.
All 3 of you guys are involved in some incredible things here, and I'm just so impressed and so interested in everything your companies are doing. But my question is, how do you guys stay so motivated, and how do you motivate your teams? I know it must be overwhelming and a lot to handle at sometimes. So what keeps you guys going?
Yeah, I hate to keep harkening back to the mission, but I certainly think that that's a key piece to it, right? Like I've worked for large organizations. I've worked for, corporate ran or your traditional publicly traded corporate organizations. And it was fun. I learned a lot and I gained a lot of experience. But at the end of the day, I wanted to do something that like I could believe in and really marry up, like I said earlier, the combination of what I like to do with a proven mission. So it's not easy always, right? I think I was up until about 1:30 looking at resumes last night. So it takes some long hours and some dedication, but I certainly think when you look at the big picture of what all of our organizations are trying to accomplish, and really kind of shift the narrative towards mission focused and big picture ideas, those are important to me. And so that kind of keeps me grounded and kind of think about it holistically from the big picture top down. So that's what keeps me driven.
I would just like to say, I know everybody's tired of COVID. We're tired of talking about it, tired of thinking about it. We're just over it. But, COVID, I think, has brought many blessings, in that, we're able to really somewhat slow down to speed up in a way. Technology like this call today has allowed us to stay in touch with students, virtual career fairs that I know App has participated in, that we've been fortunate to be a part of. But I do think that some of that, I think, has created sort of that virtual just exhaustion. And if you're working from home, it's hard to almost have a separation between a healthy work-life balance, because it's like, okay, well, I can just come right back to my computer and work till 10 or 11 o'clock. And it's just really easy to do. Whereas there's a big difference in if you're physically located in an office and you leave, it's sort of a mental break as you check out. So I really try to encourage people to stay motivated by scheduling in some planning breaks. It's really easy to get very meeting centric and heavy. And also, with that, burnout is just something I think is a concern for all HR professionals right now. But I know it sounds cliche, but a positive mindset goes a long way. And it's not just let's think positive today, it's going to be a great day, but it's like, okay, things are going to happen, right? I mean, we're going to have challenges. We're going to have things that really just blow up that we aren't expecting. And it's really how we, what are we doing about it? What solutions are we putting in place? What things can we foresee? So I think it's that healthy level of self-awareness and a positive mindset that we are going to have roadblocks, and what are we going to do to overcome them, and really support our team. And frankly, it's just having a lot of grace and support for your employees right now. And just using that wonderful trait of empathy in this world, and letting your employees feel that they're supported, because it is a really tough environment. So it's just, to me, it's very critical to be positive and supportive right now for your teams.
And lots of coffee.
And lots of caffeine. Yes, thank you. Very important, Zach.
I would agree wholeheartedly and echo what Ashley and Zach has already articulated. To add to what Ashley just said is, I think having a supportive leadership team in HR, Zoom fatigue is real, right? And COVID has exacerbated that. My smaller team on the education team is called Global Delivery, and we remote report from across the country anyway. So we were used to, being at home and striking that balance, and we'd put in systems and structures in place to support that. But when you have an entire company now that's working from home and people who are not comfortable with that, it really is a challenge. And I can share a couple of things that our organization has put in place to support our employees. One of these is times during the week where there's a no meeting zone, and we block that out on our calendar. Like every Friday afternoon, that is no meeting time. In fact, we had what we call an all hands meeting just this morning, and they're giving us some additional like vacation days for this year, and some days once a month when there's no meetings at all that day. And those things help facilitate what Ashley just articulated, that mental space, and being able to take care of yourself. And there's some flex time. So if you need to take care of your child, or run an errand, or just come off Zoom, walk away from your computer, take a walk, we really encourage all of those types of activities. And just checking in with your colleagues, like, hey, Ashley, how are you doing? How are you feeling today? And for Ashley, it's okay to say, this is not a good day for me. I can't take this meeting. I'm trying to work on this, this report. I just can't get it done. And so what we also institute instituted is something called space and grace, right? Like we have to have that grace, and we have to make ourselves vulnerable to let our colleagues know when we're not okay and when we can't show up. And it's okay for you to say that, right? And so we've all tried to rally around each other. And still the work has to go on and we still get it done. But at the base level, what COVID, as Ashley has said, has really taught us is that sometimes we have to slow down. We have to take stock of what's important. We have to prioritize, our time and what's really important to us, our family, our friends. Those connections are important, but our work family is just as important too. And the work will be, will go on. And we can't say that we're supportive of this mission, this very ambitious mission, if we're not also taking care of ourselves and, and our colleagues. So I think that's what's motivating, is that you have this ambitious mission and then you see leadership helping to live that and your colleagues living that mission as well. And besides, just sometimes the small things, when you get a note from somebody that said something that you did really had a positive impact on them and their experience and you wasn't expecting it, or somebody just to check in and say, oh, thank you for smiling on the Zoom call today, or making that joke because I was in a bad place and that made me feel better. Those are things that motivate you when there's, all this pressure to, to show up and to do and try to balance everything that's happening in your life.
I just wanted to say, Faye, I love that you have the meetings, blocks of time. I think it's one thing to say, scheduling a planning break, but it's another thing to say, hey, as your manager, I am telling you, like, schedule this time off for your mental health. And I think, we get very busy in our professional lives, but it really is important to take a step back and say, hey, this is life, and this is a great employee who is passionate about our team, and we've got to take care of our team, because we can't just assume that people are going to raise their hand. Some people need to hear that from leadership. They need to know, hey, look, I'm supporting you. Take the time you need, because not everybody's going to step up and maybe feel comfortable asking for that. So it's our job as professionals to make sure that our teams are doing that.
Yeah, I can say one other thing, Ashley, that really blew my mind is one of our VPs said that, we are in a meeting heavy culture, as a United States, and we need to really reconsider how many meetings we have, period. But she said, like, look at the agenda. If you see something on there that doesn't really apply to you and that you can't contribute, leave. And it blew our mind, because we were like, can you socialize that around the whole society? Because when I start leaving meetings, people start thinking a certain kind of way about it. But it's empowering. I think, Isabel, you mentioned, like, how do we feel empowered? I think that's one of the ways that we can feel empowered, when we have, the flexibility to say, I can't contribute to this meeting, or this meeting is not, something that is relevant to my work. I want to support you, but I opt out of this time and I reclaim my time for whatever I need to do. And I think that is a first step. I think it's going to be hard in the beginning to institute that kind of culture, but I think having a workplace like that is also still motivating and empowering.
Sorry, I was going to add one thing. I think one of the interesting things that we are doing here that we just recently implemented from directive of my boss, our director of talent acquisition, was on our weekly one-on-ones, going over one thing you personally impacted the entire organization with. And it's a really hard question. And when we first started it took me a little bit to kind of get the hang of it. And it's selfish to think about. But it empowers you to think, what I'm doing is impacting the broader organization and de facto impacting the greater mission. So it's an interesting question. It's one we've recently implemented that I really like. And it was a struggle at the beginning, but it's a fun dialogue, and it really shows what you're doing matters. And to Faye's point earlier, empowering you to make the decision and be a big piece to the organization. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and as we've been talking about how science can be the greater good, and even touching on our last question, I know for me personally, a lot of my motivation for my work, whether it's school or even my job in the PSU, comes from a passion, whether it's literally to make money, as in the case of my job, or to pursue my intellectual interests, as in the case of my degrees I'm pursuing. So, what are those passions that keep you guys motivated? Did it start in your college degree? Was it something you found later in your professional lives? Yeah, what does your journey look like?
It's an interesting one. I'll go first. So I started, and I'll be very transparent as my answer goes. I started my collegiate career in material science and engineering. I had this grand vision that I was going to go on to be this fancy engineer, and the school told me that maybe you should think about a different career path. So I switched to strategic communications, mostly because I like to hear myself talk, I think. So I switched to that and didn't really know what I wanted to do, to be honest with you, like a lot of people do when they graduate college. And by dumb luck, fell into a recruiting and talent acquisition job and never looked back. I kind of found my passion by luck, but began kind of honing my craft, if you will, and learning more and trying to understand the industry. So my degree path isn't a traditional one, I suppose, in that I went in, well, maybe it is now that I think about it, went in with thinking I was going to do something, transitioned, and then kind of came into something that I love. So I think that regardless if you're an engineering student or if you're a communication student, know when you get out into the workforce, there's opportunities for you in whatever path you may choose. So for me in talent acquisition recruiting, I enjoy chatting with folks that maybe don't know what they want to do, because regardless of what your major or career path is, there's always going to be another opportunity to pivot and go into something different.
This question is always interesting because I think as adults, we still say, gosh, I still don't know what I want to do, So like I always love to feel like, okay, what can I do next? And be able to grow in my role. So I love that challenge, but I do think, as a young person, for me, my degree was chosen just because I liked it. I mean, I was passionate about psychology. I liked all of the studies that were around it. I liked the IO piece of that correlates to the business side. Thought I wanted to do private practice. Got into that, did some internships, said, you know what, this might not be for me after all, and landed on the business side of psychology. So really have not looked back, and that's carried me through my career today. But it wasn't something that I said, oh, I'm definitely going to go into HR. It's one of those things that I think as a psych major, many students, find themselves wondering, okay, what is that path if I don't want to, practice? So, for me, it was just a chance thing. And I will tell you, I think what has been a successful piece of my story is my network. I think that not just asking for that referral, starting out in your career and thanking that person, appreciating that reference or referral, but taking care of those relationships, fostering those relationships is really important. We don't get anywhere. We don't climb the ladder of success, whatever that looks like to you, on our own. I mean, CEOs, they have support, they have mentorships, they have people that really help get them to where they are today. And so there's no such thing as, I think when it comes to growth. So I just think that along the way, taking care of those professional relationships and really being open to saying yes, like that might not be in my comfort zone, but hey, I'll give it a shot. And not being too closed-minded would probably be my best advice on things that you may not think initially sound interesting, but until you really give it a try. That's why I think internships are phenomenal. When I was in school, they weren't required in a lot of different degrees, and now I feel like they are. So I just think saying yes and getting out there and exposing yourself to different professionals, companies, cultures, will really go a long way in deciding on where you fit into that picture long term.
I think I see a theme emerging here. is that we don't always know exactly where we're going to end up. And think of it as a journey, just like what Ashley and Zach said. I didn't start out in, or I didn't end up in the career that I started out thinking I would. When I went to undergrad, I majored in political science and African American studies because I thought I was going to be an attorney. And I had a particular demographic that I wanted to focus on for empowerment, right? In civil rights and human rights. Before I did go to college, one of my teachers, who was a mentor to me while I was a high school student, said, get your teaching degree. I don't care what you major in, get your teaching degree. And I was like, who wants to be a teacher? They don't get paid enough. They're not respected. I'm going to make some money, right? And so as I'm going through my undergraduate experience, what I did come to realize is what I didn't want to do. And I certainly didn't want to become an attorney. I took one constitutional law course and realized this was not for me, right? And so what Ashley said about being open-minded, I knew that I was naturally curious. I wanted to know why. I wanted to solve problems. I wanted to help people. And I think deep down, I knew that I had a passion for teaching and learning. I just didn't want to feel like I had to teach. But after grad school, I end up circling back. I go back home to my small rural town in North Carolina. And what did I end up doing? Becoming a teacher, right? So some of those things that those seeds are planted, you might have a squirrely way of coming back to that. And then what I really realized, and as Ashley said, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I know that my passion and my purpose is in education in some form or fashion. So, I've had many jobs along the way. I'm about 23 years into education, and I've had different roles, whether it's working, in the classroom with kids, which I love and miss, to working at a university, to working on our State Department of Education. And now, lo and behold, I'm at National Geographic, which I never would have thought had this educational mission, right? So, but it's all those things that Ashley and Zach talked about, right? Is determination. It's, really thinking through and understanding who you are and really pulling out what those things are. I have this sign that says something about, to the effect of, like, you might be scared to death, but you got to make that leap. And sometimes pushing yourself beyond where you can be, where you think you can be. And I was fortunate in my life to have both educators, teachers, and both colleagues and people in what I call my village that helped me see my potential beyond what it's beyond just being smart. It's not about just being smart. It's about living your passion and being determined and kicking down doors when you're denied or you feel like you're denied. It's about also creating a door when there's not one, if you need to. And I can go on and on about different experiences, but it really is about your resiliency. It's really about having a broad skill set. You want to have expertise, but you also want to be a little fluid because you never know your path, what your path will take you. And while we also want to make money, I think that's important, right? I thought I was going to be a professional student, and my parents were like, no, you're not. Come home and make some money, right? So you have to balance out those things. And then don't be afraid to create your own job and say, this is exactly what I want to do. And let's find somebody that's going to help me get there. I think those are the things that you have to think about in terms of a career. It's not just one stop along the way. It's very squirrely path for most of us. But your passion should be first and foremost.
I think Faye and Ashley both touched on it, whether it's your village or your network. That would be from someone in talent acquisition telling young people, reach out to people, have coffee, well, not in COVID, have virtual coffee, connect with people on LinkedIn, go to virtual career fairs, do as much as you can to just talk to people. That's how you're going to understand, do you want to do that? Do you not want to do that? Does that sound like it's interesting to you? And it'll help you find your niche, find your passion, and help you find what you don't want to do. So that would be my advice to young people, is just go out and experience new things and talk to people and understand what they do and how they do it. And if that's of interest to you, pursue it.
And I love that, Zach, you brought that up, because I do think one quick point I want to make is that students need to understand that it can be tough in a recruitment world right now. You get tons of resumes. So I would say, I think there's been some guidance along the way. I've heard tidbits that say, don't call, they don't, nobody wants to have a phone call or an email. They're already inundated with resumes and interests. I say, go for it. I say, pick up the phone. We want to know that people are passionate, and the students and job seekers that, you can go too far with that. So I think there's like a happy medium, right? Don't call us maybe every single day, but show that you are driven and passionate. That goes a long way. And I guarantee you, if that's a strong recruiter and strong HR department, they're going to remember that, and they're going to be looking at your resume. And it does not go unnoticed in that scenario. So I would say absolutely pick up the phone and show you're interested and passionate about it.
And I think I know we're coming up on time, but one of the other things I want to mention is, as we're thinking real time about like job searchings and recruiting, like a well-worded cover letter still goes a long way. And whether that's evolved to a LinkedIn note or if it's a true cover letter and application, if you can convey why you're interested in doing that, that goes a long way for me as a recruiter, or for an HR person, or for an educator. That shows that you're passionate and shows you put thought into it, not just firing out dozens of applications. So I know that seems like a bit of an archaic tool these days, but it is an important piece to the search.
So our last question for you guys today is, I know we just talked a lot about, how passion is so important, especially choosing your career path. For students that are passionate in the career path that you all three are currently in, what's some career advice you can get them? How can they get involved now? What are some opportunities that they can get involved in to kind of have that foot in the door?
I would love to go back to something that Ashley said, that she pointed out about internships. They matter. They are important, whether they're paid or unpaid. National Geographic actually has an internship program that people can get involved, and you'd be surprised at the number of employees who actually went through that internship program. They started out as interns and just worked their way up. I would consider that. Also, maybe seeking mentorship. Even if you're not interested in a job, find somebody in your field that you can talk to, a confidant, somebody that you see as an industry leader that you can learn from, even informally, because they can help you learn the ins and outs of that particular industry. I think that would be really helpful for folks. And just reaching out, I think Zach said this already, but and maybe Ashley also, is that, that email or that phone call is important. I remember last year, I was on one of these panels and I shared my email address, and some students actually reached out, and I was able to connect them with folks in HR. And just as a plug, Appalachian State actually has housing in the DC area for students who may participate in an internship. And I don't know that it's 100% free, but it's a lot cheaper than trying to find an apartment in DC, right? So there's things in place that you need to pursue in your career office to see, even if it's not in Boone or in the state in which you are planning to do some internships during the summer. But it's important to seek out, those opportunities and stay connected. And then, just reach out and stay connected with folks in your industry.
I would just add that, I think one of the things that I love about Unifi's internship program is that, when we view our internships, we recruit for those positions as if they're full-time employees. It is extremely important that we view those roles as critical roles. And it is not the old adage that, they're just copying and filing and doing busy work. We have meaningful projects that our interns work on that are often leave the company and we're still using and implementing today. The other thing that I think is really says a lot about our internship program, and I would encourage students to also look at when they're considering different internships, is at the end of our internship, we actually have all the interns come to our corporate office in Greensboro, and they present to our leadership team and our CEO. If that doesn't speak to the dedication we have to our interns coming on board, I don't know what would. So I do think looking at those programs and really seeing, how you're going to make an impact, it's going to be really beneficial for you going forward. And, I know I hear a lot of students that say, 2020 sort of robbed them of their internship year. And the advice I would have for those students that feel like, gosh, I missed that junior internship opportunity, or it was canceled. I would say look for courses, look for areas that you're interested in that you could partake in, certifications, just courses in general. LinkedIn also has like 30 days of free courses you can take, and put that on your resume. Speak to those things that you're doing, even if you feel like they're not really noteworthy. They matter. All of those things matter because it shows from an employer's perspective, this person is interested, they're dedicated, and they're really making a concerted effort to advance their skill set. So I think that goes a long way as well.
Yeah, I would say a piece of advice would be to just fill up your resume, whether that's work, getting involved in nonprofits, internships, whatever it may be. Ashley alluded to it there. I think that's really important. And then one of the things that Faye mentioned earlier in terms of like using your resources, thinking about external resources, but also your internal resources when you're in college, reach out to the career services people. They are connected to employers like us, and they can put you in contact with additional tools. So I think that's really important, and stay involved. I know a lot of colleges, I think App State is one, use Handshake, put your information on there, fill out your profile, put your resume on there, make yourself visible. I'm one of the biggest proponents of LinkedIn, probably ad nauseum, but make a LinkedIn profile, reach out to somebody in your network for advice on how to polish it. Reach out to me. I'd be happy to have a call. So I just think making yourself visible in a world where it's, everything is under a microscope is certainly very important to fill up your resume, make yourself visible, and leverage your resources.
I could say one last thing too, because Zach made me think of one thing when he said LinkedIn profile. Use the power of social media, right? Everybody's on there. What does your social media page say about you? Whether it's Instagram, TikTok, or whatever you're using out there, right? Twitter. What does that really say? Because I know in our HR office, they really explore those things. That's sometimes we do our internet searches first before we even invite anybody for an interview, because even more so than your resume and your cover letter, seeing how you might represent our organization is really important. And then the last shameless plug I'll put in for like our internships program is, even though we're focusing on science here today, our program covers anything from legal to marketing to labs and technology. It runs the gamut to our museums experience. So when you're looking for organizations, don't just look for like that expertise, which might be the science, but look at all the other things that they might have to offer, because all of those pieces contribute to the success of a company.
Yeah, and then also we were talking about reaching out to people and things like that. That Faye made a good point. Like, the internships aren't always posted, and they're not always as formal as you may think of a summer internship program. My direct experience here, we didn't have one prior to me joining the organization. So people had reached out to say, hey, do you guys do interns in the summer? Or how can we join the organization? Employers, again, are attracted to candidates that are willing and able to take that step and reach out. So reach out to people. If the company or the industry interests you, reach out to them and say, hey, do you guys take spring interns, or and just kind of network and reach out. So I think even if it's not formally posted on a careers page, doesn't mean that they might not be open to having a conversation.
Well, in closing, I just want to thank you all for attending our 60 minutes as 45 minutes Careers for Impact. That's, I think, what I'm going to use as a spin-off name. So thank you so much for participating, and thank you so much for opening up and sharing about your professional lives and at times your personal lives. I feel like I really, and Isabella, I'm sure, shares the same regard, got to connect with all of you. Zach, when the universe told you that engineering was not the move, the universe also told me that finance and banking was perhaps not the career path I should take. So I definitely understand that. And Faye, oh my gosh, it was really cool to get to hear from an educator. I was that kid who was obsessed with the little National Geographic children's magazines. Those crossword puzzles, man, that was like my bread and butter for a long time. So thank you so much for joining us. And Ashley, I just love the theme you had earlier of saying yes, and you're about to hear our masks on reminder go off, so please excuse that for 1 minute.
Please, welcome to the Plymouth Student Union. Please remember to wear a face covering at all times while indoors on campus. This is a campus-wide policy. Please remember to wear a face covering at all times while indoors on campus. This includes in the cafe area. If you're not eating, you need to have a face covering on. Thank you. Stay well.
Okay, well, thank you so much. That was, I guess, our little commercial break, to say the least. But like I was saying, Ashley, I loved your policy of saying yes. I really connected with it. And at the end of the day, I really think you guys just illuminated of the know why, to paraphrase you, Faye, from earlier, why we educate others, how we can support our local communities, and why we should support our local and broader communities in many instances. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciated all of your insight, whether it be professional or personal advice. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciated it.
It's been a
Thank you for
pleasure.
having us.
You all.
Thank you, guys.
It's been a pleasure.
Have a good one, everybody.
Take care.
Bye. Take care.